Mr. Govind Iyer is the chairperson of Social Venture Partners in India and a board member at Infosys and at Karma Yogi Bharat, a Government of India initiative to create an all-in-one online platform for civil service officials. An engineering graduate from REC Trichy and an MBA from the Wharton School, Mr. Iyer had worked with Egon Zehnder, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, and Heinz. Mr. Iyer has also served on the Wharton Executive Education Advisory Board and is an active alumnus of University of Pennsylvania.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming this morning to this lovely MMA event. MMA for me is a special organization because my father was part of the AMA, the Ahmedabad Management Association. So all these organizations all over the city and the country in different cities, I think do a tremendous job of helping drive the management knowledge and management practices. So I'm really privileged to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Before I start, I want to get a little energy in the room. So how many of you are final year students? Just put up your hands. Okay, that's a... And how many of you have got a job already? I can see one hand there. Okay, good. So most of you want a job by the end of today, correct? Okay, we should talk about that because I think Nathan referred to a couple of pointers about attitude, about preparation, about how you show up in an interview. I think those are very important things. I'm going to share a little bit about my life story and a few nuggets that I have learned through the journey in the last 40 years that I think have helped me. But I will not talk about it as of today. I will talk about it as of 40 years ago. So it was 40 years ago, that was 1984, that I graduated from my engineering college, NIT Trichy, as was mentioned earlier. And I was contemplating what to do. And I thought to my mind that I enjoyed engineering, but I didn't think I'd be a great engineer. I didn't think so. So I was very clear that I wanted to do an MBA. And I chose to say I'll work for 3 years before I do an MBA, because I felt I'll learn a little more from the industry before I apply it to the management practices. So while I grew up in my schooling days in Ahmedabad, came to NIT Trichy, I decided to go back to Ahmedabad to work there. In those days, it was a startup, the way we define startups, but with the only difference is it had to make profit from the first year. Unlike startups today that don't require to make profit in the first couple of years sometimes. I worked for an air conditioning company. I learned a lot from my mentors. It's one thing I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes. And then I decided to apply for an MBA, and I was very privileged to get into IIM Calcutta, where Mali was from. And I went to IIM Calcutta to start my MBA there. I guess I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, but at the end of the day I joined IIM Calcutta, I happened to get an admission into a school in the US at the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School of Business. And despite my enjoying the Calcutta experience, for those of you who may be from IIM Calcutta or have seen the campus, it's a lovely campus, I loved it, I decided to go to the US, but with a very clear plan to come back to India. I think earlier it was referred to both by Mali as well as by Nathan that India is really the place to be today in the world because there's high growth, there's high opportunity, there's a very large young population like all of you. And I knew in 1991 that I didn't want to live abroad, I wanted to come back. So I single-mindedly put my purpose towards coming back. We talked about purpose a little earlier also. And I would encourage all of you to just decide what do you want to do today and keep steadfast to that. There will be many hurdles that will come up along your way. But it's very important to stay focused on what you think you need versus what others need from you. So I was very keen to do marketing, and I was very keen to join Procter & Gamble. And the reason I'm sharing this story with you is because I think failure is a very good thing, and you'll hear about this in a minute. Failure is not a bad thing. Actually, failure strengthens you a lot if you take it well and if you manage well. So I applied for a job in the summer between my first year and the second year to Procter & Gamble. And they said, no, we don't have a summer intern for anybody who wants to go back to India because our summer internships are for the US and only for the... I didn't give up. I kept at it, and they finally gave up on me, and they said, no, we can't do anything. Lo and behold, after applying to 65 companies for a summer job in the US, I didn't get any. I didn't get a single summer job. And then I remembered something that Mali mentioned about relationships. And I remember going to an exhibition with my father 4 months ago in the area of dental products. That's what my father was working on. And I remember meeting two individuals there whom I liked. And I had their business cards. And I called them up and I said, I'm keen to do a summer internship. Would you have an opportunity? They had never received a call from anybody from a good business school like what to want to do a summer internship with them. And they said, sure, come over. And within 24 hours, I had my summer internship. And it was the best 3 months of my life, really. Working in an environment where they had never experienced me, and I had never experienced an organization in the US. And why I'm sharing this story with you is that stepping stones is what takes it to build a career. And this was a big stepping stone for me. And it came from a relationship, it came from hard work and not recognizing that I can give up. I didn't want to give up. I wanted to work in the US because I never wanted to work in the US later. I wanted to work then and come back to India. Fast forward, my final year, I decided I'd want to come back to India, but I want to work at Procter & Gamble. And you know, sometimes in life when you manifest something, the word manifestation, you just keep thinking about it, it happens. 24 hours after the interview process started on campus, there was a phone call that came from Procter & Gamble to my voicemail. There used to be something called an answering machine in those days, which would capture your messages on your desk phone in your home. So I'd come back home at about 11 in the night from school, and I saw this answering machine message saying, can you call us in Cincinnati, in Procter & Gamble? I called them up the next day. They said, we'd like to interview you for a job in India, if you're prepared to still go back to India. That was the starting point of my career. And I got that job, I came back to India, and I've been in India now for 30 odd years, working in marketing and then in the human capital consulting world. I'll talk about that. Why I'm sharing this story with you is as you embark on your journey now to find a good job for the second year students and the first year, be focused on what you think you want. You may not know all your answers, but persevere through relationships, persevere through your own heart to do it. I referred to failure earlier. I think you will fail and you must fail, because if you fail, you will learn. And if you fail and you learn, you will actually be much better. I did very badly in my 12th exam. Literally, I cried for 2 days because I did so badly. But I was very fortunate to get enrolled in NIT Trichy. And from that day onwards, you know, Mali, who's been my friend for 40 years, knows I worked hard to get into mechanical engineering, which was at that point one of the best lines to get into. I worked hard to get into IIM Calcutta and then to the Wharton Business School. And I think that experience of failure actually taught me the importance of recognizing hard work makes a difference. And I would only say this in your job interview process, you may not get the first job that you want, but don't give up. Persevere to make it, maybe get it again later, after a few years. The other aspect I would say, as you're thinking about your career, so the topic is how do you jumpstart your career, it's very important for you to recognize that when you are in an interview process or when you're evaluating opportunities, I use the word control the narrative. That means you need to be in control of the situation. Many of us walk into an interview and expect to be interviewed. My philosophy has been, yes, you must be respectful of the interviewer, but there are times when you can also make the interviewer ask you the questions you want him to ask. So you might say, how does that happen? That happens because you end your answer with a question that's intrigue. So let me do a test. Supposing they ask you, so you're from IIM Lucknow. Why did you join IIM Lucknow? Did you get any other IIM interviews? They may ask a question like that. Or they may say, what do you want to do in marketing? Why do you want to do a marketing job? Why do you want to do a finance job? Give your answer, which you would have prepared well, but end by saying, my interest was also, picked because of a research paper that I did with Professor XYZ. Immediately they'll ask you the next question, likely to be, what was the research paper about? So what you've done is you've created appetizers for them to ask the questions. So you can, in a 20-minute or a half-an-hour process, take them through everything that you want to get across to them. If you leave it in the hands of the interviewer to decide what to ask, he or she will ask questions without knowing you, and they're standard questions. The more you control an interview in a manner that is not directive it's not directive, but it's actually allowing the person to ask you questions, the more you're likely to get a good representation of yourself in front of the interviewer. So that's one thing you must remember as you're going through your journey, not just in this job, but over the 20, 25 years. So I think as some of you may have heard, I worked for a company called Egon Zehnder. It was the world's leading human capital advisory firm that did a lot of leadership development and helped identify CEOs, board directors, but also train a lot of individuals in companies. And one of the things that I, as a leader there, always looked at when I looked at CEOs or CEO executives or people with 15, 20 years experiences, how curious are they to learn more? How curious are they to learn about themselves? And this is something that I think I learned a lot from my father. He used to always ask me 20 questions, and I could never get a chance to ask him questions. So he would want to know more about me than I would want. And so in that process, he got me to speak up a lot. And I think the more you ask questions, the more curious you will become as an individual. And I've seen that in the journey of life, if I look at the best CEOs that I've ever worked with, either in hiring them or working with them, they are those that are open to curiosity, open to learning, open to being vulnerable, open to saying, I don't know it. If you don't say, I don't know it, you will think you know it, but somebody else will give you a better answer. So I think it's important to recognize the value of curiosity. So curiosity is something that we all underestimate, saying, in a room, if I don't seem to know the answer, they'll think that I'm not good enough. Completely wrong. I think I've seen in my journey that you should be strong at what you know, you should be good at what you do, but you need not know everything on the planet. You can learn from others as well. The other point I would mention that has made a huge difference is the kind of culture that you work with, the kind of leaders you work with, and the kind of mentors. How many of you will aspire to join a startup company in this room? Hands up. I can see. Great. I can see a spread. How many of you would be prepared to do your own startup on day one? These three individuals seem to have to fund them immediately. Mali, Chennai Angels, over here. These three. I think starting your own organization is a fabulous idea. But if you ever choose to join a startup, my only submission to you was make sure you can get some mentorship. Make sure you can go and join an organization where they have advisors, or they have board members, or they have others you can learn from. Why do I say that? Because it's very important in the first 5 to 10 years of your life that you have a foundation for growth. If your foundation is strong, you can do very well. People like me, I went to Procter & Gamble. In those days, the word startup didn't exist as much, definitely in India. And I think the 5 or 6 years I worked at Procter were the best 5 or 6 years of my life in terms of a foundation for growth. So my only request to you is don't build your house on shaky ground. Build it with a strong foundation. Whether it's your own company, whether it's a startup, whether you work in a Citibank, you work in a Procter & Gamble, you work in a GE, an Axis, wherever you work, make sure you can learn from a good set of mentors. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to share 2 anecdotes for you, which I think is very important for you to remember over the next 20 years. And you probably aren't thinking that, but I'm going to leave it with you. Is take ownership of your career path. Today, you're going to get your first job. I'm sure you all will get outstanding jobs in the next 6 months. But how do you ensure that you have a career path over 20 or 25 years that in the direction that you want? That can only happen if you take charge of your destiny. You know, many people ask me, Govind, how do you spend 24 years doing the same thing at Egon Zehnder? It's because I did 7 different things while I'm at the same firm. I kept evolving. Nathan spent 20 years, I think, at Deloitte. Nathan? How do you spend 20 years in a company that's growing so fast? It's because you have to keep evolving yourself. And I would say you should start from day one. The day you get your first job, start thinking ahead and say, what's the next kind of role I want to do? That doesn't mean promotion. I'm just being very clear about that. That means role of learning. What's the kind of learning I want to get? So if I join the marketing department at Unilever, that's great. I'm going to be doing marketing for the first 4 or 5 years. But what do I aspire to do in the first year? You should start saying, I want to go and work in the field. I want to do sales, or I want to do marketing in different segments, different categories. All I'm requesting you to is take charge of your own career growth. Don't let the company drive your career growth. The opportunities will be there only when the company can give it to you. But if you drive your career growth, they will see a certain attitude in you, which I think Nathan referred to. They will see a certain drive in you. They will see a certain purpose in you. And you will come out as a much, much better individual and leader. I'm going to end my my talk this morning with just one request. Remember, as you go through your life over the next 40 years, be a giver as well. Just don't be a taker. Don't just take from everything, give as well. Start giving early on in your life, giving yourself to others, giving relationships and helping others. I love the analogy he talked about when he was running and somebody, Anupam Lal, I believe, lifted him up and took him. Be a champion of helping others grow. You will never realize the value of that till you're sort of in the 60s like I am. The value of relationships, of friendships, of carrying people along is something that you'll only realize later. So just take it from somebody who's been the beneficiary of a lot of people who've given to me. I'm really blessed to be here today. I have 3 lovely boys. I have a wife who's a classical dancer, running her own business. We're a family, small family, but yet a family that I feel very proud of. And I think it's all happened not because of me, it's not because of them, it's because of all the people around us, all the giving around us. And so don't hesitate to give, because the more you give, the more you'll get. Just believe me, the world conspires. When they see givers, there will be people who will give you. So that's my final piece of advice to all of you. Start being a giver from day one, you'll never regret it. Thank you very much.